Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, everybody, and warm welcome to this council meeting on the 29th of April. Welcome to councillors and staff, to members of the public, both in the chamber and who may be watching on the live stream. We've got pretty much it's the Roger Cook show today, with most of the things falling under the responsibility of Mr. Cook. So we'll be hearing quite a bit from him and his team as we go through this, but relatively straightforward agenda today. So one or two issues which are of great public interest, though. So we'll see how timing goes for all of that. But I do think we've got reasonable time to discuss some of those issues as we go. Just go now to apologies. We do have an apology today for Councillor Hopkins. Do we have any other apologies? Move to accept that one. Councillor Holding, Deputy Mayor Halaleli, thank you. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, that's carried. Do we have any declarations of interest? None. We'll move on through. We don't have anyone registered for public forum. Going to the confirmation of previous meeting minutes. So the public minutes for the council meeting I held on the 25th of March. Any comments on those? So I'd like to move we accept those. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Linwood, thank you. If there's no other comments, I'll put it. Those in favour say aye. Those against, that is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving to the minutes from the meeting on the 31st of March. On page 16, any comments on those? Okay, so thank you. Moved by Councillor Holding and seconded by Councillor Cowles. No other comments. Those in favour, please say aye. And against, they are carried. Now we've got the minutes from the extraordinary council meeting held on the 4th of April on page 26. Again, do we have any comments? Someone like to move those then? Councillor Thompson, thank you. Councillor Ryan, thank you very much. Those in favour of those being accepted, please say aye.
Aye.
And against, that's carried. Okay, whistling through the agenda. We'll go now to 5.1, which is my report on page 30. Not a lot of time this time round to put a whole lot of pretty pictures in there, so you just have to put up with reading. I'll take it as read with probably just one change of just on the one addition, sorry, on the water services delivery plan update. The latest news is that not only has Waitaki decided to go with their preferred option for consultation as an in-house option, that also Mackenzie is looking to do the same thing themselves. So other than that, there's work going on in the background around getting the numbers for the South Canterbury group, even though it's becoming very complex with the South Canterbury group as to what preferred options each council are going to have. It may be only Timaru has a preferred option, which includes other councils. For ourselves, obviously, we've got the Southern group as our preferred option, and there's been work happening on that. Still a bit more, or quite a little bit more work going on in the background around the consultation document and the engagement plan for that. Right, happy to take any questions or comments if anyone's got any. Stunned silence. Okay, well, I'll move that we accept, we'll receive my report. To have a seconder for that? Councillor Linwood, thank you. Those in favour say aye. And against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Right, now moving to recommendations from the District Plan Review Subcommittee. and hand to Mr. Cook for one of many appearances today.
Thank you, McCutcher. Yes, as you pointed out, the team have been busy preparing the material for today's meeting. First paper is the recommendations from the District Plan Review Subcommittee in connection with what are called staff submissions. And I just want to sort of clarify for councillors what this part of the process is. This is similar to how you approve submissions to go to legislative changes. And so these need to be hopefully approved by you today, so they can go into the formal submission process under the RMA, which we're in with the proposed district plan. They've been discussed at length with the subcommittee, and I'll now pass over to Mr. Campbell to talk through the detail as necessary through questioning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. So yes, he's mentioned most of these have been through the subcommittee, and we're not proposing to go through them unless there's any questions specifically on those listed in Appendix 2. Appendices 3 and 4 are probably the key ones, in that some additional matters were between that last meeting of the subcommittee and now have been effectively attended to and are set out there, noting that Appendix 4 was updated and convened, so it includes the Oamaru Borough water race. Came in quite late, but it's just the nature of the timing of that. Effectively, those later additions tend to refine and reduce or remap the extent of some of those heritage settings, so they're generally favourable for those landowners. The Oamaru Borough water race is essentially finishing off the bottom end of that feature. It's already mapped and included coming into the reservoir itself. I note on there's 3 maps shown there on 2.4 of Appendix 3, if you've got that in front of you. So it shows the yellow line coming down from the reservoir down the glen, and so it starts to head towards Eden Street. We are recommending...
Sorry, Mr. Campbell, do you have a page number on our agenda?
It's actually in Appendix 4.
Appendix 4 on the convene, sorry. There's no page numbers on that, unfortunately. But it's the start of Appendix 3. It's the second page down on Appendix 3 of that document. So you have to kind of scroll right to the end.
That one's basically added before 29th of April, but there's no picture of the.
Right.
If it helps, I went out of the agenda and went straight to Appendix 4 and brought it up separately.
Not really.
So it's right at the end of the document link and convene. I'll just give you a chance to find it. It's on the second last page of that convene.
Okay. Yeah. Carry on.
Yep.
Thank you.
So there's under 2.4, it says additional, and it's got in brackets indicative mapping for HH 87 Oamaru Borough water race. And there's 3 aerial photos with the yellow lines showing that. What we're proposing is the 3rd map on the right-hand side that starts to cross over Eden Street, the old Hospital Hill site, and down Cross Street. But that is not included. So it's clearly been developed over since, but the water race is still apparent in the other 2 maps on the ground. It sort of follows the gully anyway. It's not an area that's likely to be developed. Some of that is now piped, obviously, with changes to technology since the old days. So the pipe network's not affected by that marking. And the other item on the main agenda, so Listening on this. So on page 55 of your main agenda, the changes, and again, a lot of these refer to that Appendix 3 mapped heritage settings. One of those, number 2.1, is recommending it's deleted. That's the hedges fell mongery, and the next 3 are all on the maps. As 2.5, the Palmerston Memorial Arch. Same with Tishmakers, 2.6. And the Total Estate one. So they're all basically in the table, they're cross-referenced in the maps as well. So it's got both there so you can see what's changed. The last one in that table, 2.8, is a slight change to the activity status for the subdivisions where people are over the 20 hectare minimum. It would be just an anomaly that's non-compliant, should actually be restricted discretionary, so it's not as tough to subdivide where you do meet the minimum. So it's just to tidy that up to make more sense in terms of the hierarchy. Doesn't change the fact that it's consentable, it's just an easier consent path effectively. So that's kind of the key additions since the subcommittee meeting. A lot of the heritage ones were flagged and depended on getting that advice through, which has changed the mapping effectively, largely for the better. And the Borough Water Race, as I said, is the last length of what's left of it down to the edge of town. And then that piece through town, we would not include that. That's shown on the third map, basically from the top of and where it crosses Eden Street right through to Cross Street. Yeah. There is still a heritage setting around the old pump there. There's a sort of remnant of it on the side of the road on Cross or Chalmers Street that reflects where it kind of terminated. That's still packed up.
That's on council land, is it?
On that road reserve, yeah.
Yeah.
But the setting's sort of on that Milligan's corner there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Holding, then Councillor Blackland.
It probably had been, I was just looking for clarification if this had been through the subcommittee, but I think Mr. Campbell's just answered that it hasn't, so they knew. I was just doing it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blackland.
Thank you. Just a question regarding item 2.6 on page 56, the updated setting for tish makers. Yeah, noting all the other kind of points are further refinement and kind of specific site specific identification of you know the item requiring protection or whatever. I just know that tish makers was a further expansion, and when you look at the map, the purple hatched of what it was versus shifting to what it is now. I was just wondering why that's gone, like what the reason is for the shift in that direction compared to the others.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Blackler. It is probably the exception that it has changed the other way. I guess because the site has various buildings throughout it, the gardens, etc. The setting is all around the building. So what they're recommending is to capture the essence of the whole complex, to have the setting across that part of the site. It doesn't mean to say a building or changes can't be made. It just means that when it's a consent, we consider how it relates to the complex as a whole on that part of the site. And the Heritage Advisor thought if you kept it quite narrow, it meant that something could pop up outside that purple area, but within the wider complex, it could compromise its kind of overall heritage values. Doesn't say it can't happen, but having a wider consideration means that we just give it a chance to look at something. If it's a small shed or something like that, it's probably not an issue, but if someone wanted to put a big, multi-story building or something, that's probably going to take away from what's already there in that wider area captured by the red. It has other sort of garden settings and trees and so on that add to the whole complex.
Councillor McCone.
Yeah, David, have the owners been notified of this proposed change? And secondly, if it does go ahead and gets passed, have they got time to put a submission in to object to it?
The owners haven't been notified, but they're all already included by and large with the settings. So they already have a setting on there, so they can submit to get it changed either way. Obviously with Tish makers, it's getting bigger, so that's something we can certainly alert them to in this case. But they already have a setting on each chunk of their site.
Given it is a change compared to the others, it's quite a marked change in the opposite direction. I would appreciate if we did follow up with them directly, just to give them the opportunity to submit.
When we get to recommendations, you may like to add that as a motion.
Yeah, sure.
Any other comments? Oh, Mr. Cook. Yeah.
And just to clarify, Mr. Campbell, that as it's a submission, under the process, they will be able to make a submission on the submission. Tishmakers and all these landowners. So if they want them to go back to the bigger area, they can go back to the bigger area if they make a submission and it goes to the hearing process. And Tishmakers, we can inform them of the change, but it will be a submission, so they've still got the submission on submissions process.
Okay, any other comments? Just one of the things that, I've picked up since the notification of the plan was around the rural lifestyle rules. I believe we'd had quite a discussion on the reduction in size, which has been carried through into there, but I felt at the time there was reasonable support around the subcommittee table that we didn't include a 1 hectare average for the lot sizes, because of everything coming through for final approval. I certainly missed that, and we've notified the plan with that 1 hectare average size. So I do have concerns that and possibly other matters that may have been brought up along the way weren't actually brought back to us in the form of recommendations for us to resolve. And it made it very difficult for any single member of the committee to look at all of the bits and pieces that have happened over many months of discussions and workshops and meetings. And that's certainly one aspect that, I still have concern that we're not actually allowing more subdivision to happen in the rural lifestyle area. Just wonder whether you have any comment on that, Mr. Campbell, and what we might be able to do about that particular one.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kircher. We did cover that off at the last subcommittee meeting and talked through that the 1 hectare average was agreed to, back at the time it was discussed, and introduced a minimum of 5,000 square metres. The subcommittee didn't go any further than that at the time. That they felt that was a good compromise to allow for a range of sort of development options in the rural lifestyle, noting some of the constraints around servicing if it was to go any lower. It's kind of the key aspect there. So that's where we landed with that one. Again, it'll be open to submissions on whether landowners want to seek to change that or not, or revert back to what we have in the current plan. So that's where it ended up on that one.
Yeah, I must have been away on that particular one. It's a shame that those discussions didn't get picked up earlier. Anyway, councillors, any other comments, questions? Okay, is anyone happy to move any of the recommendations? Is anyone happy to move anything? I'm just going to look to Councillor Thompson as chair of the subcommittee. It'd be good to get your feedback on your thoughts on this particular situation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a conversation with the planning manager round the lot sizes within the rural lifestyle. And where it currently sits, there is provision for smaller blocks. So subdivision can go down to 5,000 square metres, but the requirement is that the average across the blocks sits at the 1 hectare. So there could be, for example, and having been pulled up on my arithmetic yesterday, I better be careful. But we could have 4 half-hectare blocks and then go to the larger size, as long as over the total, the average is 1 hectare. So, for example, on my patch in Palmerston, where we're on hills and gullies, the gullies may be larger blocks to allow for a suitable building site, but on the hilltops, it can go down to the smaller size. So it's, I understand your concern, Mayor Kircher, but I think there is also a practical element to it. And again, I remind people that whilst we have a desire to make things easier with the plan, the bottom line is these rules do not preclude people from applying for variations. It just means that there is some control over it going forward. In terms of what we want to move, I don't see in my minutes a recommendation on these mapping changes. Is it included under all the recommendations that come up on page 64? Or sorry, 63.
Mr. Campbell.
Top of page 40 or middle of page 41 has the recommendations, which includes those agreed by the District Planning Subcommittee under recommendation 3, which is the Appendix 2 list. And then the additional ones we talked about just now are under item 4, so it picks up. So mainly those heritage matters.
I'd be happy to move those submissions with the addition possibly around Councillor Blacklist's concerns that where changes have been made, that those landowners are notified. Yes. You happy with that, Councillor Blake?
Okay, moved Councillor Thompson, seconded Councillor Blackler, with the addition that of number 5, that affected landowners are notified of the changes and were increased and made aware of their opportunity to submit in the process. Happy with that? Yeah, just going back to the rural lifestyle. I wasn't really referring to that at the time, but it was simply that, you know, if someone's got 4 hectares in that zone, they could have 4 houses on there, you know, split it up and have 4 houses. The idea was to actually have more houses. The rule as it stands is there can only ever be 4 houses on that while it's zoned that, unless it goes through a much more extensive process of a notified consent. So yeah, that was the purpose of that particular one. But as to the motion or in front of us, does anyone want to speak to that? Okay, I will put it then. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to procedural matters for the proposed district plan. Mr. Cook. Um, 61.
Yes, as the title describes it, it's procedural matters for the proposed district plan. We have, as councillors are aware, received an application for an extension of time period for the submission process. And officers have sought advice on that, and I'll pass to Mr. Campbell to present that advice.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. This has come about through an unusual, or not unusual request, but unusually the request has gone to elected members who have made a decision to notify the plan and follow the RMA process, which is set out in summary on page 63. Normally through that process, those requests come through and like a resource consent here, submission process, someone might say, I want to lodge a late submission, and we deal with that in-house under delegation. Likewise, this sort of request can be dealt with under delegation in-house. We consider the reasons for the request. In this case, there is some validity in their reasoning, and we note the generous submission period we have already given. We also note that the plan was in the public arena at the end of last year, so it's been available for people to look at prior to 1 March. With the request, we did seek legal advice just in terms of our options, and part of that included some recommendations to appoint an independent hearing commissioner or commissioner to deal with these matters, just so it's at arm's length from our day-to-day work and helping people go through the process. We don't have a hearings panel as yet set up to hear submissions and further submissions. It's coming to council later. So there was no one really in place to deal with these type of matters as it would come to a hearing panel with the normal process. So the advice was to appoint someone as an in-between until then. There's no compulsion on council to do this. It's just good practice, but there are other options, such as leaving it with the delegations that sit with either myself or Roger to deal with those procedural matters. And there's, I guess, several options around how that could be worked through. What we have arrived at is for that party, given they represent a lot of people, they haven't said exact numbers, but we thought, further week at least give them a bit more breathing space. If we push it out too much longer, it just sort of eats into our time frame. It also means we're spending longer waiting to summarise all the material and get that out there for further submissions, and also to get a bit of a flavour for what's coming through. So we're just conscious that there's that RMA obligation to keep things moving versus giving people an opportunity to fully comprehend it. So happy to answer any questions on
Thank you.
process.
Thank you. Councillor Holding.
Just trying to follow from the last paper into this one. There was some inquiry from the subcommittee, just in a general discussion in the minutes there. But then, had this request not been made, what would this procedure have been? Would this always part of it, independent? Seems like another step change.
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks, Councillor Holding. People will be expected to lodge, by the 9th of May. Occasionally, submissions can come through late, just by the fact of people not realising and maybe sending them through late, and we would consider them as late submissions. It would be rare to exclude them if they just come in on the Monday or something like that. But unless people request it, they've got the timeframes. It's been well publicised. We've got the Friends of the Submitter out there to help people work through it. And we have been clear to people that they don't need to provide a whole in-depth analysis and expertise to lodge a submission. It's to cover the key points you want to submit on, making sure you touch on what you want changed. Later on, there's an opportunity to bring in experts if you feel you need to beef up your your submission points. But at this stage, it's just getting your submission in so it's clear what you want changed.
Thank you. Just so councillors are aware, I'm going to treat these as separate matters for when taking movers and seconders, and also when we vote on the motions themselves. Councillor Ryan.
Sorry, I've missed it, but what's the financial cost of appointing an independent hearing commissioner? I can't find it in here, sorry.
It's a tricky one because they'll be basically on call, so there'll be no kind of cost until they are presented with a request, and it depends how long they have to deal with that. So it could be a few $100s if it's a simple matter like this, or if it's delves into more legal issues and matters, we would probably have to get legal advice as well. So it'd be a cost on top of any commissioner. If there's no requests, there's no cost.
Councillor Thompson.
So, Mr. Campbell, with the one specific request that's in front of us for an increase of submission time, you said that there was some validity in their argument. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, I think the key is saying that because they represent a lot of clients, they might have a lot of interest to consider, whether it's commercial, rural, private residential. They indicate it could be up to 100 clients. So there's a lot of time and work for one law firm to be doing that work. That's probably more the reason to extend it. They've pointed out reasons around the Environment Court decision on the matters. Those revisions have already been in the plan since council approved it. It doesn't change that part of it. They're just delving into the Environment Court case behind that, which is more context and background than actual plan content. You can't submit on an Environment Court decision itself, but they can submit on the plan provisions that have come in. And importantly, the Environment Court decision only set out what provisions had immediate legal effect. So it doesn't change the actual provisions. The Environment Court didn't delve into that. The council set those provisions. It just picked up a couple of areas that were to have immediate legal effect and would remain so, unless they seek for the court to overturn that decision, which is a whole different process outside of this.
So following on from that, we need to be perfectly clear that this is a specific request from a specific submitter or group of submitters. Therefore, we're only dealing with this. Is there any precedent within the process that if we're going to extend for 5 days for a specific request, that we extend for 5 days to everyone?
Once we delve into that territory of extending it for everyone, we would have to notify publicly that we're doing that and do that fairly soon. People have already lodged submissions, so it might affect those that have already done that. They might want to revisit them. It's really only where we've got experts or planners or lawyers working for a group of people that they're under pressure to do that work in the time frame. It's very similar to when we have to lodge submissions on higher legislation. We have to meet that time frame and often come to council to get retrospective sign-off because of the tight time frames. So I think that the reasoning for it is when you've got someone that's really under the pump, they've got a lot of people to deal with and put submissions in for, as opposed to just keep pushing the time frame out that's already longer than the 40 working days because of holidays, and we felt just to be a little bit more generous, give people another week or so on top of that. So we already have gone beyond what's required.
Yes, I'm well aware that we went further in terms of the time allocation. What I'm trying to tease out here is if we or staff grant this request, does it then leave us open to every other person preparing submissions to say we would like that courtesy as well?
Yeah, anyone can make a request at any time. And again, if you agree to 5 working days, that would probably be what we would seek to do, whether it's an independent commissioner or whoever you delegate to, or under the current delegations to grant those requests. We would look at it and go, well, we've given 5 working days for this group. We would probably give the same for anyone else. And they'd have to have similar reasons, I guess. So the other part of the puzzle.
Just speaking to that, I think we're working in extraordinary circumstances. The community's working under the same circumstances where we have a government that's looking to have major change. There's been a lot of uncertainty. There's some very challenging changes to the district plan. My feeling is that it won't make too much difference in any negative sense to extend it to 5 working days for everyone, 5 extra working days. So I will test the meeting by moving that council directs the Heritage and Planning Manager to respond to a request from Todd and Walker Law by extending the submission period by a further 5 working days, being 16th of May 2025. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor McCone?
That's on the word that on behalf of clients that's the district, you covering the district with this. Yes. No.
That's extending the period, the submission period for everyone. Thank you. Just to go into it further, I don't. If someone has already made a submission and they want to change it, then I imagine they will just put in an amended one, if that was to happen at all. But I think whilst this, one lawyer, a law firm has written to us, there may be others that want to do it, and we don't have much time left before the time runs out. So a request to extend at that point will be very difficult. I'd rather we work for our community and that we actually make sure that we're letting everyone have the opportunity to submit properly. As I say, it's a very extraordinary time at the moment with the legislative change that's being proposed, but not being carried out yet by the government. And it just will help more people understand the situation and make submissions if they wish to. Do anyone else want to speak to the motion? Mr. Campbell?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Kircher. Just a question around that. Are you wanting to keep it, and we may need to get legal advice, are you wanting to keep it informal and that people that request an extension would get it under this resolution, or do you want to publicly notify that we are extending it for the 5 working days?
We will serve our community best by making sure that people know that we are extending it for 5 working days.
Yeah, so notifying.
So publicising it, yes. Any other speakers to that? I'll put it. Those in favour say aye. Aye. And against? That's carried. We'll move to the address the second recommendation, and I'll go to Councillor Jim.
Well, it's the only Jim here today. I presume it's me, although I was speaking with Councillor Hopkins as well this morning, and he expressed his thoughts on this matter to me, and whilst hearsay is not really that admissible, I can assure you that he's on a similar train of thought to other members of the subcommittee. Under the current delegations, there's the ability for staff to deal with these issues without bringing in an independent commissioner. Personally, I am totally opposed to the use of an independent commissioner. This is the Waitaki District Council plan, and we have been constantly frustrated as councillors through this process. But we do acknowledge that the process is very prescriptive. But for me personally, this is a step too far, and will put my cards on the table. If council chooses to support an independent commissioner's appointment, I'll be tendering my resignation to the mayor as chair of the subcommittee, because I don't believe that this is a particularly good option for our district. And after all, I was elected to represent this district, not the Resource Management Act.
I have said to Councillor Thompson that as inviting as that might sound to most of us, that actually would prefer he stay where he is. But yeah, I think that indicates the sincerity and the strength of his conviction on this particular matter. RMA was originally designed for local decision making. It's been more and more removed from that. This is just another step towards that, as I see it. But happy to have any other comments after Mr. Cook. As I say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify that the recommendation is in no way set out to undermine the role that Councillor Thompson has played as chair of the District Plan Subcommittee. He's navigated that group through some very challenging discussions, and we acknowledge the work that he's put into that, the support he's given the plan all the way through. And so this is by no way any indication of any inadequacy that we identified in that subcommittee by the chair or any of the members.
David?
Thank you, Mayor Kesher. A couple other points, I guess for context. The last paragraph of Anderson Lloyd's advice on page 70 talks about a hearing administrator, and we now have one sitting behind me who's been appointed to help with that role. So that gives us some assistance in that space, deal with those issues. Going back to the report where it has that kind of flow chart of the process, yes, there is the statutory RMA process and things follow through that. Throughout any sort of plan process, there is still the ability for council to manage its own process, aside from what the RMA prescribes under Schedule 1 in terms of any sort of more substantive changes. For example, if we were to bring a variation to council to amend a part of the plan for some updated information, whether it's hazards related or something like that, that would come back to council to say, yes, we want to vary the plan to address this specific issue. Likewise, if central government or regional plan information requires us to change something that needs council approval, it would come back to council. So it doesn't take away from those kind of key substantive things that would come to council. All it's saying is, yeah, there's options around how you deal with procedural matters outside of that. Yeah, just some further information there.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor McKeown?
Well, I think Councillor Thompson has said it all, really. It is a district plan. It's for the betterment of the district and its ratepayers. And I think any decisions that are made locally for the betterment of the district. And I think that's where we've got to remember who pays the rates.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Mr. Campbell, can you just refer to our options going forward? My understanding is that staff still have delegations to process in the absence of a commissioner. Am I correct or incorrect in that understanding?
Yes, under delegations, things like extensions of time, that type of thing can be dealt with in-house. So anything that doesn't sit with the delegations with officers would come back to council anyway. Yeah.
Councillor Blackler.
In terms of the decision we're making around recommendation to Mr. Campbell, just to clarify, we are deciding about how we will address issues prior to the formation of a hearings panel, is it? So there would be further consideration down the line around who the hearings panel would comprise, but today's about procedural matters prior to that point in time.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Blackler. That's correct. And again, as I've mentioned in the report, it doesn't automatically mean that this commissioner would be appointed to the hearings panel. Council might choose to have a different mix on that. So it doesn't in any way predetermine that outcome.
Councillors. Looking for some direction here. Councillor Thompson.
I'm happy to move option 2, that we do not appoint an independent commissioner to deal with procedural matters relating to the proposed district plan.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor McCone and Councillor Blackburn. Second equal. Anyone want to speak to that? I'll put it then. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Point of order, silence from the public.
You wish me to speak to that?
Good. No, thank you. Former Mayor Alex Hamilton. Good to see you here. Okay, we now go on to talking about Class 4 gambling and TAB venue policy. 3-year review, and Mr. Bardsley, you sorry, just make sure I'm in the right place. You're here to speak to that, so the floor is yours.
Mayor Kitcher, if I could just quickly, I've sort of reconsidered probably my position around this, because we do hold a Class 4. I'll be abstaining from any decision on this thing.
Probably a good idea. Sorry, I should have referred to Mr. Cook. Would you like to speak to introduce us? Just start with.
Thank you. Yes, I'll do a very brief introduction. This has been, this is now the formal part in relation to the workshop that we held a few weeks ago. And I'll now pass to Andrew Bardsley to provide the detail.
Morning, councillors and council staff. As per the summary, this is to recognise the significant workload that councillors and council staff have at the moment with the district plan review, long-term plan, and also the election cycle that we're in. What we're asking councillors to decide here today is if we can postpone the formal part of the review of this policy until the 2026 year. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions?
I guess that, what would the risk of delaying? Is there any risk of delaying it for the new council?
No, as long as the review process has begun within the time period, which is we've already begun the review by actually putting this in front of council, and section 102(6) of the Act actually says the policy does not cease or to have effect because it is due to being reviewed or is being reviewed currently. So there's no risk to council if we postpone it, because the review has actually begun.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bardsley. Are we happy to move these motions as presented?
I'd be happy to move it. I agree with the sentiment that there's a lot on the table for staff and elected members at the moment with what's going on. So I think.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Blackler. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? The recommendations as presented? Anyone against? Going once, twice? Are we happy to vote? Okay, those in favour. Those in favour of the 2 recommendations provided. Number 1, approve the review of the TAB venues policy, 2022 Class 4 gambling venues policy. 2022. And second recommendation, approve the postponement of the review process until 2026. Those in favour? Any against? Okay, all in favour, but noting that councillor Cowell's abstinence from that. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bardsley. Okay, we move to 6.4. Please local approved products, policy, psychoactive substances, 3-yearly review. I will hand this over to Mr. Cook. Thank you.
Thank you. This is really a piece of just sort of tidying up. We do have a current local approved products policy. There are no psychoactive substances approved for the public use at the moment. But as per the workshop we conducted a little while ago, we recommend that we do keep a policy in place, and we recommend the review date as per the recommendation 3, sometime between now and April 2030. And over to Andrew to ask any questions.
Good morning. Again, the thing about the local approved products policy is that there's no requirement for council to have one, but it does recognise that psychoactive substances can do harm in our communities, and legislation allows us to have a policy. If we allow the policy to lapse, then we have to go through the special consultative procedure as set out in the Local Government Act to actually reinstate one. And if government changes legislation and psychoactive substances are able to be sold in our communities, we were then playing catch up in regards to trying to get a new policy in place. So the recommendation is that we roll this policy over and that we adopt it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bardsley. Do we have any questions? Councillor Ryan.
Obviously unlikely to be the case, but if it was that a new product came in, is there any, how easy would it be for us to add any new sensitive sites, or, if there are, I guess, new schools or community facilities, or would that be easier to just make those adjustments, or what's the process there?
Yeah, it'd be quite a simple process of just bringing a paper to council looking to amend the policy to adapt to whatever the new legislative changes are. I mean, within the areas that are allowed, if one of the prohibited sites was established there, then it would further reduce the area where one could be established. And it's almost zero at the moment, but yeah, we're really at the mercy of government legislation in regards to what we can do.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Probably just a comment from myself, probably in a former role that I've had. I understand the grave impact, that this has on a number of people in our community. And I think it's really proactive that we, consider approving the recommendations as they stand, the 3 recommendations here. So if there's no further questions, if I have a mover for all 3 recommendations, we can take in totality. Moved by Councillor Ryan, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Anyone wish to speak in favour? Okay, happy with the information provided in the report. Anyone against? Okay, shall we put it to vote? Those in favour of approving the 3 recommendations as they stand in 6.4 report?
Aye.
It's a very quiet aye. Can I have an aye? Okay, anyone against? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we move to 6.5. Oamaru Heritage Buildings Landmark Listings, page 105.
Can start.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. We are just waiting for Mr. Campbell and Mr. Smith to, or Dr. Smith to arrive in the chamber. And we got through the last items rather quickly. What we bring to you today is the landmark heritage listing proposal from Heritage New Zealand. This has been quite some time in the making. It's been discussed through various councils, and I think it is a great opportunity to really put Oamaru historic precinct and historic buildings on the national radar. And unfortunately, Mr. Smith has not arrived yet, but I know he would want to talk about it very enthusiastically and in depth. But I think it is such a great opportunity for very little cost investment by us. So we'll open it to questions, but we might have to just hold the questions until they arrive. I have messaged them to attend the chamber.
Any questions? Councillor Holding. Thank you.
Just on the ones that fall under private ownership, are they part of being consulted for this, or is that part of the HNZ consultation afterward?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Some of the buildings that fall into the private ownership in the area, that they're aware and supportive of their buildings being.
Heritage New Zealand are dealing with all the building owners directly. So we're dealing with the council buildings where we own the land or where we own the buildings. But Heritage New Zealand are in effect running the process. We are purely seeking your agreement to include the council owned assets in the listing.
Councillor Ryan.
If I guess there is the needing for signatures from parties with registered interest, and if they don't do that by mid-May, how do we manage that?
Heritage New Zealand will be handling those inquiries and those signatures. As I said, we are purely seeking your agreement to include the council owned assets. There is, as the report outlines, a good level of enthusiasm and support for this from many building owners. And I don't foresee that will be a problem. If there was a particular building, then I would imagine that they could just drop that building out of the listing. But I hopefully that every building owner can see the benefit in this and what this can do for the town and tourism and prosperity, really.
Councillor Blacklow.
Thank you. I just had a question regarding two parts of our harbour area that haven't been included in the NHL harbour area extent, but have carried a significant or played a significant part in the history of the area overall. Those being.
What's the question now? The experts arrived.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Cook. Maybe I could come back to that and give Mr. Campbell and Mr. Smith a chance, Dr. Smith a chance.
Right. So Mr. Campbell and Dr. Smith, happy for you to make your comments on the report. As it is in front of us, we've had a few questions come through, but I was out of the room when Mr. Cook probably introduced the report itself. So happy for you to add any comments that you might have.
Yeah, it's probably best to hand over to Dr. Smith to go through summarise of the report and what we're seeking to do here today. So I'll hand over to Mark.
Thank you.
I'm going to read the summary and then in the interest of time, help answer any questions you have. So, summary, council can secure significant benefits and recognition for Waitaki by supporting this proposal. The Oamaru Historic Town Centre and Port sites would go from being listed among the thousands of items on HNZPT's list to one of a handful of places of exceptional national significance. No additional regulatory burden would be placed on council as a property owner. The proposal is supported by the Oamaru Whitestone Civic Trust, other affected property owners and affected council functions. There do not appear to be any significant downsides. And on a personal note, I think endorsing this proposal would recognise the work of many Waitakians over many years to preserve and promote the heritage we have here. So, thank you.
Councillor Blackman.
Thank you. I just had a question, as you guys were arriving in the room, regarding the NHL harbour area extent on the maps that have been provided. And I was just wondering, how ultimately, and it might be a question that's better placed for, Heritage NZ, but they're not in the room. So Dr. Smith, you might be able to help, but why the likes of, so I was saying there's two kind of significant structures that played a real integral role in the history of the overall harbour area, those being Sumter Wharf and the old freezer building. And I was just wondering the criteria for which the extents were ultimately landed on, and why those two, albeit degraded, but significant assets have been left out.
Thanks, David. Thank you, Councillor Blackler. Good questions. The short version is complexity. I have talked about this with HSNPT. They were interested in both of those structures. They would still include them if council wanted them to be included. It's not that there would be any additional burden, but there was some pushback from council officers and assets and property at the time. But yeah, it could be done if you wished it.
Supplementary to that, could it be done in time, or is the extent of which the NHL harbour area extent is defined at this point, does that comprise of the finished product, so to speak?
I can't speak for HNZPT's timelines, but from what I understand, it would slow things down.
To add it in at this point, but if we agreed on the extent as it is proposed today, could further places of significance be added in the future as part of the package, or is that something that's not possible?
I don't know, but I believe so, because they're in discussions with the Runaka at Moeraki, for example, and yeah. I cannot give us a definite answer, but that's my understanding is later there could be additions.
Councillor.
Mark. Interesting reading. I'm a bit confused. I understand why it's going on, and we have the Historic Places Trust over the top, or whatever they call themselves now, to protect these buildings. So I'm cynical because I used to own some of that stuff, and the regulations come through. Does it make the upkeep of these buildings more expensive for the owner in the long run? While in the short term it does do the job protecting it, is it actually putting an onus on those buildings to be protected more at more cost?
Good question. I specifically addressed this to the area manager of HNZPT and got her to put it in writing that the legislation this comes out of is about promotion. So while ideally they'd love everyone to look after their buildings to best practice, it doesn't create any new legislative burden to do so. So these buildings and structures were all listed in the district plan, and that's the legal protection. It is that it has any teeth. Nothing new is being added by being part of this historic landmark system. Perhaps just add to that, under existing legislation such as the Building Act, there's quite a requirement there in terms of earthquake strengthening, that type of thing. I'm aware that they'll be looking at that as well for potentially some low risk areas. So whether that comes through and changes some of those sort of structural building requirements would be separate from this, but it may make it easier for some of those building owners to comply. Although I think most of these have been upgraded anyway for a certain earthquake rating.
Thank you. As been explained, this is a great report. One question I just wanted to ask and perhaps clarify. My assumption is going through and achieving this status would also give building owners significant assistance in applying for funding that might become available through central government. Would that be a correct assumption?
Like most things, there are no guarantees, but yes, bluntly, it would put the likes of the Oamaru Whitestone Civic Trust and other property owners at the head of the queue. Instead of being among the thousands who have, historic listed buildings, they'd be among the extremely rare few that would be of national significance. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Black.
Oh, I had the same question.
Okay. Any other questions? So I'm happy to move the recommendations. One more question.
Well, one more that's come about as a result of that response and my earlier line of questioning. Would, on the basis of support and resources possibly being more readily available, would that give us some sort of compelling argument towards including the two assets or inquiring around the inclusion of those two?
I think that's a good question. I don't know. I know a lot of government funding doesn't like to give funding to other government bodies, but there are times when funds are created. There just hasn't been a specific fund created for this. So I don't know, Tim, but I think it's up to you. I mean, it's as we discussed earlier, they could be added in later if it's a matter of getting it across the desk and getting the minister to sign it, so that we're the third rather than the fourth or the fifth or the sixth, if that means much. In your shoes, I would go ahead with it as it is now and then push for the inclusion of those items if that was where you wanted to go based on some more analysis and some input from the likes of the property team and that's what I would do, but it's your call.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan. Okay, so I'll move the recommendations and seconded by Councillor Ryan. Thank you very much. Just speaking to that, this has been an on again, off again situation where the government was proposing this. There was a change of government, there was a stepping back from this particular program, and we had the local landmark program initiated as a something that was going to be available to more places around New Zealand. And then with the changes more recently, this has gained some prominence. I don't know how many meetings I've had with the CE of Heritage New Zealand, encouraging them to get on and do this part of things. And something that he felt that could be very simple, probably isn't, and probably hasn't been, and it's taken a bit longer because of that. But yeah, it is recognition for our buildings. When I was talking with him, it was proposed that Waitangi might be one site, and Waitaki was another one nationally, and there was a certain synergy there with Waitaki being the southern dialect of Waitangi. So Waitangi is nationally known, nationally recognised, very important to the country, and the opportunity to put Oamaru's heritage buildings on the par with that is pretty special, and a very good recognition for the buildings that we have. And very importantly, recognition of all the work that many people have done over the years to preserve the buildings, to reinvent them, to give them new uses and to create the attraction that we do have with our heritage building. So very happy to support this and look forward to this becoming a reality, subject to the vote now. So anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Ryan.
I'll just quickly, I think it is a fantastic opportunity for recognition of our buildings and for our district. And just thank you to Dr. Smith for such a comprehensive report coming to us.
Councillor McCone.
Yeah, look, I'd also support the work that's been done on that, and I will support it on the basis it's promotional and doesn't become a cost to the owner.
Thank you. Just recognise there are concerns that is could be the case, and everything I've seen is that no, if anything, that it may be more beneficial, given that all the buildings have existing protections on them already. Anyone else wish to speak to it? I'll put it then. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That is carried, and echo those comments about the report. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Smith and David and team, for all of the work that you've done on this one, and look forward to this progressing. Thank you. Councillors, now move to last item in the public session, which is the 2025 triennial elections, which is currently coming up. Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you. So this report has come about following the discussions at our March meeting, where you'll recall that you asked officers to gather some further information around both the possibility and the costs of incorporating booth voting into our triennial elections. As you know, we've used postal voting since '89, and from discussions with our current elections contractor, most have. He did tell me about Hutt City, who in '92 actually went to booth voting, then returned in the next following election back to postal due to a significant drop, as is in the report. Current postal costs estimated with looking at recent figures, approximately 189K to run that, plus some small internal costs around promotion. However, the estimated cost of booth voting, if we went with a 3-day polling across 16 places, as is highlighted in the report, between 350 to 500K, so a significant difference there. I was also informed that putting this in place for the 25 elections would be extremely difficult given the time constraints, but of course we can look at what we do in the elections following that. So therefore this report still highlights the preferred voting method being the voting method due to its simplicity, due to its cost. Please be assured that we do combine this method with a number of ballot bins placed throughout the district in suitable places. So we do see this as being the most value for money option. Would be happy, as I said, to explore different options in the future. And the second item in this paper is around the order of candidate names, which we discussed in the last meeting, and I believe we didn't have any issue with, keeping it in the random method as the preferred option. So open to questions.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any comments? Just acknowledging the support, I guess, for the polling booth type scenario, but obviously some good feedback, not necessarily the feedback we wanted, but some pretty strong reasons why it might be a bit of a challenge. So any questions, Councillor Ryan?
What is the process for us to do more ballot bins, or like is that quite a simple process for council to manage, or in terms of increasing the number of those, or doing more to promote, giving people more options to be doing?
It is a simple process for us. We are increasing the number this year. Also, you'll recall with the introduction of our locality officers around our district, we're going to be putting them through the training because there is some significant training required even to go and collect the contents of the ballot boxes and return them. So we will have them across the district. So I can't give you the exact number, but I can come back to you with what that figure is, and we will be placing them right throughout.
Councillor McCone.
Yeah, I don't even know why we're looking at this, to be quite honest. That you put your name up and people like you, they vote for you. If they don't, they don't. And how that works is up to how the system's done. And I like your conclusion at the back where you cover it off both. And I think that's probably where we should be looking at, because the turnout we've got across the nation is probably as good as anywhere you're going to get. And until things become contentious, which I think they have a wee bit this year, it would resolve your voter turnout. So give everybody an opportunity.
In response to your question, why do we consider it? Which I took from your wording. Essentially, it is trying to increase the voter turnout, and it has been a lot better in the past. It's dropping everywhere, and there are some impediments with the current system. This is definitely seen by the electoral reform panel that has been set up nationally, that moving to this type of thing will increase turnout and making it easier for people, but also making it more of a special thing that they go and do, rather than get something in their letterbox, fill it in, and then have to go and find somewhere to actually post it, because there's not too many post boxes around anymore. So anyway, that's a brief summary of it. Does anyone else have any other questions? Councillor Holding.
Mine's on behalf of the Councillor Hopkins and Shadow Councillor Henderson, just on the 22 figures there of the return percent. I think it was only 45.5% voter turnout, so I've got 49.29 in the report, but we might want to correct that before it goes out. But on other serious note, I think I get we want to try and encourage as much turnout for the elections as we can, but I think it's now the time for the extra expense. It's probably not something I'll be supporting to look at this triennium.
Yeah, we certainly hope the government picks up the recommendations from that panel, because part of it was having the Electoral Commission run this on a national basis, not council by council, and having private companies do it. As much as that's helped assist the process up to now, time for it to be run centrally by government in the same way that they do theirs. Right, Councillor Thompson. Hopkins, nearly said.
Just a suggestion out of left field, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if we were trying to attract people to a voting booth, or that maybe the retiring councillors, along with members of the Ratepayers and Residents Association, would be interested in forming a male dance troupe to perhaps perform Leave Your Hat On at the Opera House on voting day.
It's questionable about whether that would increase turnout, to be fair. Not sure on that one, but thanks for the suggestion. We'll put it into the mix. Okay, any other comments? Someone, let's see, where are we at? Someone happy to move? Councillor Ryan, thank you. And Councillor Blackler, thank you. Those in favour, say, oh, sorry, yes, you can.
Just speaking to the recommendations, I just wanted to acknowledge the team that put the report together. I think they've addressed pretty much all the questions that we had in earlier sessions on this, and given us some good information to run with the decision today. So thank you.
Apologies for jumping the gun. I think Councillor Thompson's vision put in my mind, which totally put me off. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. I guess just echoing Councillor Blackler's comments, have moved this recommendation, but I do think more needs to be done in the future in terms of moving online, in terms of looking at polling booths, and just to Councillor McCone's comments earlier, I think more can be done. More people, we should be aiming higher to get more people engaged in local government, and that goes further than just whatever method we use for voting. That's civics engagement. And if we look at, there has been an increase in voter turnout in the younger age group, from 18 to 25. It's risen from 27% in 2001 to 42% in 2022. So we can do more, and we should.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Breen.
Yeah, look, I mean, I hear the online question being asked, but we were briefed at the last LGNZ conference, and security is just not secure enough, believe it or not, these days. We don't really have systems available that they deem to be secure enough for voting online due to the political climate that there is worldwide. Even though we're a little old at the bottom of the world, there's still a risk, unfortunately.
Putin is watching. Okay, I'm going to put it, those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against, that's carried. We've just got a public excluded item, which is minutes from previous meeting. If, does anyone wish to speak to them? Because otherwise we could just accept them in public. So, okay, is someone happy to, we accept those minutes? Councillor McCone, Councillor Holding, thank you. Any discussion? Of course there's not, so I will put it, those in favour, say aye. Those against, that's carried. And that completes the meeting. Unless I've forgotten something. No, I haven't forgotten anything, I don't think. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating in this. We have had some good reports and good discussions today. Really appreciate the dialogue that's gone on. And thanks, officers, for the support that you've given there. And to members of the public who have watched this in the chamber and also online, thank you very much for joining us as well. With that, declare the meeting closed. Thank you.